The Draconian Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their home world sat at the center of 17 different star systems, and every planet in those systems answered to one ruler. Emperor Vaxith sat on his throne of black stone and made decisions that affected billions of lives. He was massive even for his species. His scales shone deep crimson in the light, and his wings could spread wide enough to cast shadows over entire buildings. When he spoke, everyone listened. When he was angry, people disappeared. The Draconians believed they were perfect. Their bodies were strong and powerful. Their claws could tear through metal. Their wings let them fly through the air with grace and speed. They lived for hundreds of years and remembered everything they learned. To them, other species were small and weak and barely worth noticing. Humans were particularly amusing to the Emperor. These tiny creatures, with their soft skin and fragile bones, had only recently developed faster than light travel. They lived such short lives, barely a century if they were lucky. They had no claws, no scales, no wings. They were weak in every way that mattered to Draconian thinking. So when the human diplomatic team came to his throne room and asked for a marriage alliance, Emperor Vaxith almost laughed out loud. They wanted to connect their species to his through marriage. They wanted mining rights in the Kepler Belt, a region of space rich with rare minerals. They offered technology sharing and mutual defense pacts. They spoke about friendship between their peoples. The Emperor listened to their proposal with growing amusement. These humans actually thought they were equals. They stood before him in their crisp uniforms, speaking about mutual benefit and long-term cooperation. They had no idea how ridiculous they looked to him. He decided to teach them a lesson about their true place in the galaxy. The Emperor had 7 daughters. 6 of them were perfect examples of Draconian beauty. They had golden or crimson scales that caught the light beautifully. Their wings were large and powerful. They were tall and strong, with sharp claws and fierce eyes. They were everything a Draconian princess should be. Then there was Zara. Princess Zara was the youngest daughter, and she was nothing like her sisters. She had been born without wings, which was almost unheard of in the imperial family. Her scales were dull gray instead of brilliant colors. She was small for a Draconian, barely 8 feet tall when her sisters towered over 9 feet. Her snout was shorter than normal, her claws were smaller, and her frame was lean instead of powerfully built. In Draconian society, she was considered ugly, deformed, a mistake. The Emperor kept her hidden away during important ceremonies. Her sisters mocked her in private. The court pretended she did not exist. For 20 years, Zara had lived in the shadow of her family's disappointment. Now the Emperor saw a perfect use for his defective daughter. He summoned Zara to his throne room. She came quickly, as she always did, keeping her eyes down and her movements small. She had learned long ago not to draw attention to herself. "Daughter," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "I have decided on your future." Zara felt her heart sink. Nothing good ever came from her father's attention. The humans have requested a marriage alliance. They wish to connect themselves to our empire. The Emperor's smile was cruel. "I have decided to grant their request. You will go to their space station and represent our family." Zara looked up in shock. Marriage alliances were supposed to be honors, reserved for the most beautiful and accomplished princesses. This had to be a trick or a punishment. "You will leave in 3 days," the Emperor continued. "You will live among the humans and report back to me about their weaknesses. Consider this your service to the Empire." The other courtiers in the room understood immediately what was happening. Some smiled. Others looked away in embarrassment. Everyone knew this was an insult to the humans, sending them the one princess that no Draconian would ever want. Zara bowed her head. "As you command, Father." The Emperor waved her away, already bored with her presence. As Zara left the throne room, she heard laughter behind her. They were laughing at the humans who would receive such a worthless prize. They were laughing at the joke the Emperor had played. Zara returned to her chambers and looked at herself in the mirror. Grayscales, no wings. Too small, too different. She had spent her whole life being reminded of her defects. Now she would be sent away to a species that would probably find her just as disappointing as her own people did. 3 days later, Zara boarded the Imperial ship that would take her to human space. The crew barely spoke to her. The captain delivered her to Station Valor without ceremony or respect. The message he carried from the Emperor was brief and cutting. "Here is my offering. May you find her as valuable as I do." The human diplomatic team received the message in their conference room. Commander Greg Palmer read it 3 times, his face growing darker with each reading. The other diplomats around the table were silent. They all understood what had just happened. "It's an insult," one of the younger diplomats said. "He's mocking us." "Of course he is," Palmer replied. "The question is what we do about it." "We could refuse," another diplomat suggested. "Send her back and break off negotiations." "That would mean war," Palmer said. "The Emperor would claim we insulted his daughter and his empire." "We're not ready for that fight. So we accept the insult and look weak?" Palmer stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the docking bay where the draconian ship had arrived. Somewhere on that ship was a princess who had been sent here as a joke. "We accept her," Palmer said finally, "but we don't treat her like an insult. We treat her with respect and dignity. We show the Emperor that humans don't measure worth the way he does." "Someone will need to be her liaison," one of the diplomats pointed out. "Show her around, help her adjust. It needs to be someone who can handle the situation delicately." They debated for an hour about who should be assigned to the princess. It needed to be someone diplomatic but not too formal, someone who could handle potentially awkward situations, someone who would not treat her badly just because her father had sent her as an insult. The answer came from an unexpected place. Jake Morrison was in the engineering bay when he heard about the situation. He was 32 years old and had been working on Station Valor for 6 years. He was the chief mechanic, which meant he fixed everything from life support systems to coffee makers. His hands were usually covered in grease, his uniform was rarely clean, and he had a reputation for being able to repair anything if you gave him enough time and coffee. He also had a stubborn streak about fairness. When he heard that the draconian princess had been sent as an insult, and that everyone was treating her arrival like a political disaster, something in him objected. He went to Commander Palmer's office without an appointment. "I'll do it," Jake said. "I'll be her liaison." Palmer looked up from his desk in surprise. "Morrison, you're a mechanic, not a diplomat." "Exactly," Jake replied. "I'm not going to play political games with her. Somebody's got to make sure she doesn't feel like garbage just because her father's a jerk. And I figure anybody the Emperor wants to throw away might actually be worth knowing." Palmer studied Jake for a long moment. The mechanic stood there in his grease-stained coveralls, completely serious. There was something refreshing about his straightforward approach. "All right," Palmer said. "She's your responsibility. Try not to cause an interstellar incident. No promises," Jake said with a slight smile. The next morning, Jake Morrison stood in the docking bay waiting for Princess Zara to disembark. He wore his usual work coveralls and carried a rag in his pocket for wiping his hands. He had no idea what to expect from a draconian princess, especially one who had been sent here as an insult. He was about to find out that sometimes the things people throw away are actually treasures. The docking bay doors opened with a hiss of air pressure equalizing. Jake Morrison stood near the ramp, watching as the draconian ship's exit opened. He had seen pictures of draconians before, but pictures did not prepare you for the reality. Princess Zara descended the ramp slowly. She was huge compared to Jake, nearly 8 feet tall with gray scales that caught the artificial light of the docking bay. She had no wings, which Jake only noticed because the pictures he had seen of other draconians always showed massive wings. Her movements were careful and controlled, like someone who was used to making themselves small. She reached the bottom of the ramp and stopped. Her eyes, which were amber-colored and surprisingly expressive, scanned the docking bay. Jake could see her shoulders tense when she spotted him. She was expecting something bad. Jake walked forward and extended his hand. It was a simple human greeting, something he had done 1,000 times. "Welcome to Valor Station, Princess. I'm Jake Morrison. I'll be showing you around." Zara stared down at his hand. For a moment, she did not move. Her expression was confused, almost suspicious. Then very carefully, she reached out and enclosed his hand with her clawed fingers. Her touch was gentle, like she was afraid she might hurt him. "You're not afraid," she said. Her voice was deep and rumbling, but clear. "Should I be?" Jake asked with a grin. "Come on, let me show you where you'll be staying. Fair warning, the ceiling height is designed for humans, so you might want to duck in some places." He led her through the station corridors. Other humans stopped and stared as they passed. Some whispered to each other. Jake ignored them and kept talking to Zara, pointing out important locations like the cafeteria, the medical bay, and the recreation areas. Zara's quarters were in the diplomatic wing, one of the few areas with higher ceilings to accommodate different species. The room was plain but functional, with a bed that had been specially made larger and stronger to hold draconian weight. "It's not fancy," Jake admitted, "but it's comfortable. If you need anything adjusted, just let me know. I'm pretty good at modifications." Zara looked around the room slowly. "This is acceptable," she said formally. Then quieter, "Thank you." Jake spent the next few days showing Zara around the station. He took her to the observation deck where you could see the stars. He introduced her to the cafeteria staff and helped her figure out which human foods were safe for draconians to eat. He even gave her a tour of the engineering sections, which most diplomats never saw. That was where things got interesting. Zara stopped in front of a large machine, studying it with focused attention. "This is your primary power distribution system?" "Yeah," Jake said. "It takes energy from the main reactor and distributes it throughout the station. Why?" "The design is inefficient," Zara said, then immediately looked worried like she had said something wrong. "I apologize. I should not criticize." No, Jake said quickly. "I want to hear this. What's inefficient about it?" Zara hesitated, then pointed to several junctions in the system. "These redundancies create power loss. You have 3 backup systems where one properly designed system would work better. You are trying to prevent failure through multiplication, but you lose efficiency." Jake looked at the system with new eyes. "Huh. We always figured more backups meant more safety." "More backups mean more points of potential failure," Zara explained, gaining confidence. "One strong system with proper maintenance is more reliable than 3 weak systems competing for resources." They spent 2 hours discussing power systems. Zara knew things about energy distribution that Jake had never considered. She explained draconian engineering principles and asked questions about human approaches. For the first time since arriving, she seemed comfortable. Jake started bringing Zara with him on his regular maintenance rounds. At first, the other engineers were uncertain about having a draconian princess watching them work. But Zara never acted superior or critical. Instead, she asked questions and offered suggestions. After a week, the engineering crew started to like her. She was especially popular with the night shift. Jake had introduced her to coffee, which draconians could drink safely. She found it fascinating, the way such a simple beverage could become a whole culture among humans. The night shift taught her to play poker, though her draconian face made it hard for her to bluff. "You are kind to me," Zara said one night, sitting with Jake in the engineering break room. "Why?" Jake looked up from his coffee. "Why not? I was sent here as an insult to your people. My father wanted to humiliate you by sending his defective daughter. Everyone knows this." "Yeah, I heard about that," Jake said. "Your father sounds like a jerk." Zara's eyes widened. "Speaking about the Emperor that way would get someone executed in draconian space." "Look," Jake continued, "your father might think you're defective, but that's his problem, not yours. From what I've seen, you're smart, you're good at engineering, and you're actually pretty nice once people get past the whole giant dragon thing. So either your father's an idiot, or draconians have really weird standards for what makes someone valuable. In my culture, physical perfection is everything." Zara explained quietly. "I have no wings. My scales are the wrong color. I am too small. These things make me worthless in draconian society." "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," Jake said bluntly. "You don't need wings on a space station. Your scales look fine to me, and being 8 feet tall is not exactly small. You're judging yourself by standards that don't even make sense." Zara was quiet for a long moment. "No one has ever said such things to me before." Then no one has been paying attention. Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. Jake found himself looking forward to the time he spent with Zara. She had a different way of seeing problems that made him think about engineering in new ways. She was also funny once you got to know her. Her humor was dry and observational, pointing out the small absurdities of station life. Zara found herself feeling something she had never experienced before. She felt valued. Jake treated her like a colleague and a friend. He listened when she talked. He respected her opinions. He made terrible jokes and taught her about human culture, and never once looked at her with pity or disgust. She realized she was happy. One evening, Jake took her to the station's small garden dome. It was a luxury on a space station, a place where plants grew under artificial sunlight. Humans needed green growing things for their mental health, Jake explained. They sat on a bench among the plants. Zara had to be careful not to break it with her weight, but she managed. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said. "Of course. Do you miss your home?" Zara thought about the question carefully. "I miss the archives. There was a library in the Imperial Palace where I spent most of my time. Old books about mathematics and engineering principles. I was not allowed at court functions, so I read instead." "That actually sounds nice," Jake said. "It was lonely," Zara admitted. "But I learned much. Things that the court engineers have forgotten, because they are too busy proving their dominance over each other." "So being ignored made you smarter than them?" "Perhaps. Or perhaps I was always different, and being ignored simply gave me time to develop my differences." She looked at Jake. "Your people are different from mine in fundamental ways. Draconians value individual strength and perfection. Humans value cooperation and adaptation. Neither is wrong, but they create very different societies. Which do you prefer?" Jake asked. Zara was quiet for a moment, watching the plants sway in the artificial breeze. "I prefer being here. I prefer being useful instead of ornamental. I prefer friends over courtiers. I prefer honesty over hierarchy." She turned to look at him. "I prefer you." Jake felt his heart beat faster. He had been trying not to think about his growing feelings for Zara. She was a princess from a species that could probably start a war if someone insulted her. He was a mechanic who fixed broken things. It was complicated in every possible way. But sitting there in the garden dome, with this intelligent, kind person who happened to be 8 feet tall with gray scales, Jake realized something important. Complicated did not mean wrong. "I prefer you too," he said quietly. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the plants grow under the artificial sun. Neither of them knew that in 3 months, Zara would discover something that would change everything. Neither knew about the sabotage hidden in the technology her father had provided. Neither knew they would have to choose between safety and truth. For now, they just sat together, a human mechanic and a draconian princess, finding something neither had expected in the cold vacuum of space. They were finding home. The next day, Commander Palmer called Jake to his office. The commander looked tired. "Morrison, I need to know if you understand what you're doing." "Sir?" "With the princess. The whole station sees it. You're spending every free moment with her. You're falling for her." Jake did not deny it. "Is that a problem? Diplomatically? It could be complicated. Personally, I think it might be the best thing that's happened to this alliance." Palmer leaned back in his chair. "The Emperor sent her as an insult. But if you two form a real connection, it changes the whole dynamic. It makes the alliance genuine instead of political." "What if it's already genuine?" Jake asked. Palmer smiled slightly. "Then we're in uncharted territory." And knowing 3 months after Zara arrived at Station Valor, everything changed during a routine inspection. Jake had asked Zara to help him examine the new experimental shield generator that had been installed the previous week. It was a prototype system that combined human and draconian technology, designed to protect the station from asteroid impacts and weapons fire. The Draconian Empire had provided the technical specifications as part of the Alliance agreement. The generator sat in a secure room deep in the station's core. It was a massive piece of equipment, humming with contained energy. Jake had been running diagnostics all morning and everything looked fine according to the readouts. Zara stood beside him, studying the energy patterns on the display screens. Her head tilted to one side. A gesture Jake had learned meant she was confused about something. "This is wrong," she said. Jake looked up from his diagnostic pad. "What do you mean?" "The harmonic resonance pattern. You are using a logarithmic progression for the frequency modulation." She pointed to the screen. "But draconian power systems require a fractal pattern for stability. The frequencies will destabilize over time." "But these are the official specifications," Jake said, pulling up the documents. "These came directly from the Draconian Imperial Engineering Corps. Your people designed this system." Zara took the pad from his hands and scrolled through the technical documents. Her eyes moved quickly, scanning the complex mathematics and engineering notation. Then she stopped and her expression changed. Jake had never seen her look frightened before. "These specifications have been sabotaged," she said quietly. "What?" "Look here." She pointed to a series of equations. "This modification appears to enhance power output. but it actually creates a feedback loop in the harmonic frequencies. The system will appear stable for approximately 2 months, then it will catastrophically overload. The explosion would destroy half the station. Jake felt cold. Are you sure? I am certain. This is deliberate. Someone designed this system to fail. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then both of them realized the implications at the same time. The marriage alliance was not just an insult. It was a trap. Jake immediately contacted Commander Palmer. Within an hour, the station's leadership was assembled in a secure conference room. Zara explained what she had found, using diagrams and mathematics that most of the humans struggled to follow. But the conclusion was clear enough. The Emperor sent sabotaged technology, Palmer said, his voice tight with controlled anger. He's trying to frame us. When this generator explodes, it will look like human incompetence. He'll have justification for war. We need to check everything else the Draconians provided, Jake said. The next 72 hours were intense. Zara worked with the human engineering teams to examine every piece of Draconian technology that had been installed in the last year. She found the same subtle sabotage pattern in 12 different systems. The station's enhanced sensors, modified for Draconian and human compatibility. The new communication relay that was supposed to improve contact between the species. Even the medical equipment designed to treat both humans and Draconians. All of it was designed to fail at critical moments. Some failures would have been minor inconveniences. Others would have killed people. All of them would have looked like human error or incompetence, giving the Emperor the political justification he needed to void the alliance and claim the Kepler belt for himself. How did you see it? Jake asked Zara late one night. They were sitting in the engineering lab, surrounded by technical documents and cold coffee. If the Emperor's own engineers hid this sabotage, how did you spot it? Zara was quiet for a moment. Because I am a failure, she said finally. I was never allowed to participate in the great engineering projects. I was not permitted to work with the court engineers or contribute to imperial designs. So I spent my time in the archives, reading the old texts, the foundational mathematics that our people developed thousands of years ago. She pulled up an equation on the screen. This sabotage is very clever. It uses advanced techniques that modern Draconian engineers would recognize as sophisticated work, but it violates the first principles, the basic rules that everything else is built upon, rules that the court engineers have long since stopped studying because they consider them too simple, beneath their genius. So, being excluded from the great projects actually made you the expert, Jake said. It made me invisible, and invisible people see things that others miss. Zara looked at her clawed hands. I know what it is to be overlooked. To have people assume you have nothing valuable to contribute. So when I look at designs, I do not assume expertise or authority. I check the foundations. I verify the basics. That is what caught the sabotage. Jake reached out and carefully took one of her hands in his. Princess, you just saved thousands of lives. Maybe more. You stopped a war before it could start. That's not being a failure. That's being a hero. Zara's scales flushed darker, a draconian blush. I am no hero. I simply know mathematics. Same thing sometimes. They worked through the night, identifying all the sabotage and developing solutions. The fixes required combining Draconian and human engineering in ways that neither species had attempted before. Zara understood the Draconian principles. Jake understood human technology and improvisation. Together, they created hybrid solutions that were better than either species could have designed alone. Commander Palmer watched them work with growing realization. This is what the alliance should have been from the start, he said to his second-in-command. Not political games and power moves, just people working together to solve problems. But the situation was more complicated than fixing sabotaged equipment. The evidence of deliberate sabotage created a political crisis. If humanity revealed what the Emperor had done, it would humiliate the Draconian Empire in front of the entire galaxy. That could trigger the very war they were trying to prevent. Palmer called another meeting with his senior staff. We have a choice to make, he said. We can expose the sabotage publicly, which would destroy the Emperor's reputation but might force him into a war to save face. Or we can quietly fix everything and pretend we never found it, which keeps the peace but leaves him free to try again. There is a third option, Zara said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She had been invited to the meeting as the technical expert, but she had stayed silent until now. What option? Palmer asked. You make the sabotage public, but you frame it carefully. You do not accuse the Emperor directly. Instead, you praise me for identifying flaws in the technology and helping to improve it. You turn it into a story of successful cooperation rather than deliberate sabotage. That's letting him off easy, one of the human diplomats objected. Perhaps, Zara agreed, but it allows him to save face while still exposing that his technology was flawed. Other species will see that human draconian cooperation identified and solved problems. It becomes a strength of the alliance rather than evidence of treachery. Palmer considered this. It could work. But Princess, this puts you directly in opposition to your father.
He will know you found his trap.
He will know you helped us instead of staying silent. Yes, Zara said simply. He could see that as treason. I know. Jake stood up. Then we make sure everyone knows what she did. We make it public before he can touch her. We show the whole galaxy that Princess Zara is the reason this alliance works. Palmer looked between Jake and Zara. He could see the way they looked at each other, the unspoken understanding between them. This was more than politics now. All right, he decided. We go public with the story, but we do it carefully. We focus on the successful cooperation and the improvements to the technology. We make Princess Zara the hero of the story, which makes her too valuable to dismiss or punish. The plan was put into motion. The Colonial News Network was contacted. Carefully worded press releases were prepared. Technical papers were submitted to engineering journals throughout the galaxy. The message was clear. Princess Zara had identified critical flaws in the hybrid technology and had worked with human engineers to create improved designs. The alliance was stronger because of her contribution. The story spread quickly through galactic news networks. Princess Zara, the daughter the Emperor had sent away as an insult, had become the most important figure in human draconian relations. The Emperor was furious. In his throne room on the draconian homeworld, Vaxiath raged at his advisors. His plan had been perfect. The sabotage was subtle enough that no one should have found it until it was too late. The humans would have been blamed. The alliance would have collapsed. The Kepler belt would be his. Instead, his defective daughter had ruined everything. How did she see it? He demanded. She has no training. No experience. She is nothing. His chief engineer bowed low. The sabotage violated some of the first principle equations, my lord. We did not think anyone would check such basic mathematics. Then you are all fools, the Emperor snarled. You underestimated her, just as I did. He summoned his eldest son, Prince Carveth. You will go to this human station. You will retrieve your sister and bring her home. She has embarrassed this family enough. Carveth bowed. It will be done, father. But retrieving Zara would not be as simple as the Emperor thought. Back on Station Valor, Jake and Zara sat together in the observation deck. The week before Prince Carveth's arrival was strange for everyone on Station Valor. The story of Princess Zara's discovery had spread across the galaxy, and suddenly the station was receiving attention from dozens of species. Journalists wanted interviews. Other governments wanted to know more about the hybrid technology. Scientific organizations requested copies of the technical papers. Zara found herself famous, which was deeply uncomfortable for someone who had spent 20 years trying to be invisible. Jake stayed close to her during this time. He could see how the attention stressed her. She was used to being ignored, not celebrated. Every interview, every public appearance, every news broadcast made her more nervous. I do not know what to say to these people, she told him one evening. They were hiding in his workshop, the one place on the station where reporters could not follow. Just tell them the truth, Jake said. He was rebuilding a power coupling, his hands moving with practiced confidence. You saw a problem. You fixed it, that's all. But they want me to be something important, a symbol of cooperation between our species. I am just an engineer who knows mathematics. Jake set down his tools and looked at her. Zara, you are important. Not because you're a princess or because you're a symbol. Because you saved lives. Because you chose to help people instead of staying silent. That's what makes someone matter. Zara sat down on the floor next to his workbench. Even sitting, she was almost as tall as Jake standing. I am afraid of what will happen when my brother arrives. Carveth is everything I am not. Strong, beautiful, commanding. My father sent him to bring me home. Do you want to go home? No, Zara said immediately. But I do not know if I have a choice. I am still draconian, still bound by imperial law. Then we find a way to give you a choice, Jake said. They had been working on a plan with Commander Palmer. If Zara claimed asylum in human space, she could potentially stay. But it was complicated. The Draconians might see it as kidnapping. It could damage the alliance they had worked so hard to build. The situation became more complicated when Jake realized something he could no longer ignore. He was in love with Zara. It had happened gradually over the months. The way she explained complex engineering problems with such clarity, the dry humor she showed when she was comfortable, her kindness to the younger engineers who asked her questions, the way her amber eyes brightened when she solved a difficult problem, the careful gentleness with which she moved her clawed hands, always mindful not to hurt anyone. She was brilliant and kind and funny and beautiful, and Jake did not care that she was 8 feet tall with grayscales and came from a species that considered her defective. Loved her. The problem was that expressing those feelings could make everything more complicated. If the Draconian Empire thought a human was involved romantically with the princess, it could become an interstellar incident. Jake did not want to make Zara's situation harder, but Zara was facing her own realization. She had never expected to care about anyone. In Draconian culture, marriages were political arrangements between powerful families. Love was not part of the equation. Her father had sent her away, assuming she would spend her life alone and unwanted. Instead, she had found Jake Morrison. He was nothing like Draconian males. He was small and soft and had no claws or scales. He fixed broken machines instead of conquering territory. He made jokes instead of demonstrating dominance. He valued cooperation over competition, and he saw her, really saw her, not as a defective princess or a political pawn. Just as Zara, a person with thoughts and feelings and value, she loved him for that. Loved him in a way that made her hearts ache and her scales flush and her thoughts drift to him at odd moments during the day. One evening, 4 days before Carveth's arrival, they were working late in the engineering lab. Most of the station was asleep. It was just the two of them, surrounded by technical equipment and the quiet hum of machinery. Jake was explaining a modification he wanted to make to the shield generator. Zara was half listening, more focused on watching him talk. The way his hands moved when he explained things, the intensity in his eyes when he was excited about an idea, the small smile that appeared when he figured out a solution. "Are you even listening?" Jake asked, noticing her distraction. "No," Zara admitted. "I was thinking about something else." "What?" "You," she said simply. Jake stopped talking. He looked up at her and something passed between them. "A moment of understanding, of recognition, Zara," he said quietly. "I need to tell you something. And I know the timing is terrible with your brother coming and everything being complicated, but I can't keep pretending." "What is it?" "I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Zara felt her hearts racing. In Draconian culture, declarations of affection were formal and ceremonial. This was simple and direct and completely human. It was perfect. "I love you as well," she said. "I did not know I could feel this way. My people do not speak of love like humans do, but what I feel for you, it is more than friendship, more than respect. It is as if part of me only makes sense when you are near." Jake stood up and walked closer to her. Even standing, his head barely reached her chest. The size difference should have been absurd. Instead, it just felt right. "If you stay here," Jake said, "it won't be easy. Your father will be angry. Your people might see you as a traitor. And us being together, that's going to be complicated in ways we probably can't even imagine yet. I know. But I want you to stay, not for the alliance or the technology or any of the political reasons. I want you to stay because I want to be with you. Because I think we could build something good together." Zara reached down and carefully cupped his face with her clawed hand. "Then I will stay. I choose you, Jake Morrison. I choose this life, with all its complications." They kissed then, which was technically difficult given their size difference and the fact that Zara had a snout instead of human lips, but they made it work, like they made everything else work, through adaptation and creativity and genuine care for each other. The moment was interrupted by Jake's communicator beeping. He checked the message and sighed. "Palmer wants to see us now." In the commander's office, they found Palmer looking worried. "The Draconian delegation will be here in 2 days," he said. "Prince Carveth has sent ahead a formal demand for Princess Zara's return to the homeworld. He's citing imperial law and family obligation." "I will not go," Zara said firmly. "That's what I needed to know," Palmer replied. Because if you claim asylum, we will grant it. But we need to be prepared for the consequences. The Emperor might see this as an act of war. Or, Jake said slowly, we could change the narrative before Carveth even arrives. They both looked at him. What if we go public with everything? Jake continued. Not just the sabotage, but Zara's decision to stay. We do an interview. Explain her choice, show that she's not being coerced. We make it about her choosing her own path instead of humans stealing an imperial princess. That's risky, Palmer said. Very risky. Everything about this situation is risky, Zara pointed out. But Jake is correct. If I speak publicly before my brother arrives, it becomes my choice instead of a political maneuver. It gives my father less room to claim insult. Palmer thought about it for a long moment. If we do this, we do it right. Full interview with Colonial News Network. We tell the whole story. The sabotage, your discovery, your decision to stay. Everything. Including our relationship, Jake added, looking at Zara. Because that's part of why you're staying, right? Zara nodded. Yes, that is a large part. Then the galaxy needs to know that this isn't politics. It's personal. The interview was conducted the next day. The journalist was a human woman named Kate Hudson, who had covered interspecies relations for years. She was professional and respectful, asking difficult questions without being cruel. Zara explained everything. How she had been sent to Valor Station as an insult. How she had discovered the sabotage technology. How working with humans had shown her a different way of valuing people. How she had found friendship and purpose and love in a place where she was supposed to find humiliation. And your relationship with Chief Engineer Morrison? Kate asked. That's been the subject of much speculation. Jake saw me as a person first, Zara said simply. Not as a defective princess or a political tool. He valued my mind and my contributions. He treated me with respect and kindness. Over time, that grew into something deeper. I love him and he loves me. That is not complicated. It is simply true. Jake, sitting beside her, added, people are going to have opinions about us, about the size difference, the species difference, all of it. But the thing is, we don't need anyone's permission to care about each other. We're not asking for approval. We're just being honest about what we've found together. The interview was broadcast across dozens of star systems within hours. The response was immediate and divided. Some people celebrated the relationship as a beautiful example of interspecies cooperation. Others called it scandalous. The Draconian Empire issued no official comment, which worried everyone who knew how to read imperial politics. Silence from the Emperor meant he was furious. Prince Carveth arrived the following morning. His ship was massive and ornate, a clear display of imperial power. When he disembarked in the docking bay, he was accompanied by 20 imperial guards, all of them huge draconians in ceremonial armor. Carveth himself was impressive. He stood over 9. The docking bay was silent after Zara's refusal. Prince Carveth stared at his sister as if she had spoken in an alien language. In Draconian culture, refusing a direct order from the Emperor was unthinkable. Refusing it publicly was essentially treason. You forget yourself, sister, Carveth said, his voice cold. Father demands your return. You are imperial property. You have no choice in this matter. I am an adult Draconian citizen, Zara replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing hearts. And I am claiming asylum in human space. I have been granted full citizenship and employment as Chief Technical Liaison at Station Valor. Jake stepped forward to stand beside her. The height difference was almost comical. Carveth towered over both of them, and his guards made the situation even more intimidating. But Jake had spent 6 years in space, dealing with equipment that could kill him in a dozen different ways. He was not easily intimidated. Princess Zara has made her choice freely, Jake said. We're not holding her here. She can leave any time she wants. She just doesn't want to. Carveth's eyes focused on Jake for the first time. You are the mechanic, the one who has corrupted my sister with your human notions. I'm the mechanic who sees her value, Jake replied. Something your family never bothered to do. You dare speak to me of my family? Yeah, I do. Because your father sent Zara here as a joke. He wanted to insult humanity by giving us his unwanted daughter. But the joke's on him because she's the smartest, bravest person I've ever met. She saved thousands of lives. She built bridges between our species. She did more in 3 months than your whole imperial court has done in years. So maybe the problem isn't Zara. Maybe the problem is that you people are too busy worrying about wing size and scale color to notice actual brilliance. The guards moved forward, hands on their weapons, but Commander Palmer stepped between them and Jake. Prince Carveth, this is human territory. Your guards will stand down or you will leave immediately. Carveth's jaw worked with barely contained rage, but he was politically savvy enough to know he could not start a fight here. Not with cameras recording everything. Not with the whole galaxy watching. This is not legitimate, Carveth said, turning back to Zara. You cannot simply claim asylum and abandon your family. Your culture, your responsibilities. What responsibilities? Zara asked. I was hidden away my entire life. I was forbidden from court, from contributing to imperial projects, from having any role in society. The only time Father acknowledged me was to use me as an insult to another species. What exactly am I abandoning? Your bloodline. Your heritage. My bloodline deemed me worthless. My heritage told me I was defective. Here I am valued for what I can do, not judged for what I look like. That is not abandonment. That is choosing to survive. Carveth was quiet for a moment and something shifted in his expression. For just a second he looked less like an imperial prince and more like a brother seeing his sister clearly for the first time. Father will not accept this, he said quietly. He will see it as betrayal. As theft. Then let him, Zara said. I am tired of living for his approval. I would rather live for my own purpose. Commander Palmer stepped forward. Prince Carveth, perhaps we should continue this discussion in private. Away from the docking bay. They moved to a secure conference room. Carveth came with 2 of his guards. Palmer brought his senior staff. Jake and Zara stood together, presenting a united front. Once the doors closed, Palmer laid out the situation clearly. Your sister has uncovered sabotage in the technology your empire provided. 12 different systems, all designed to fail catastrophically. We have documented everything. Technical specifications, failure projections, evidence of deliberate design flaws. He pulled up the data on a large screen. Numbers and diagrams that even Carveth, who was not an engineer, could understand. If we present this to the Galactic Council, it will destroy your father's reputation. Palmer continued. The entire galaxy will know the Draconian Empire tried to frame humanity for technological failures in order to justify war. Your father will lose standing among the other empires. Trade agreements will collapse. Your economy will suffer. Are you threatening my father? Carveth asked dangerously. No, Zara said. We are offering him a way out. She stepped forward, pulling up a different set of documents on the screen. These are technical papers I have co-authored with human engineers. Improvements to the hybrid technology, solutions that make both draconian and human systems more efficient. We have submitted them to engineering journals across the galaxy. They are already being cited by researchers from 7 different species. What is your point, sister? My point is that this can be a success story instead of a scandal. Father can claim that sending me here was a brilliant move, that I was placed here specifically to facilitate technical cooperation, that the improvements to the technology are proof of successful alliance building. He can turn his insult into a strategy. Carveth stared at the papers, reading quickly. As a prince, he had been trained in political maneuvering since childhood. He could see what Zara was offering, a way for the Emperor to save face, a way to turn disaster into triumph. And what do you want in return? He asked. I want to stay here, Zara said simply. I want to continue my work. I want my father to acknowledge that I have value, even if I do not meet his standards of beauty. And I want to be with Jake. Carveth looked at Jake, really looked at him for the first time. You truly care for my sister? I love her, Jake said without hesitation. And before you tell me about all the ways that's impossible or inappropriate, I don't care. She's brilliant and kind and funny and amazing. The fact that your people couldn't see that just means they weren't paying attention. Our cultures are very different, Carveth said. What you call love, we call political alliance. Maybe that's why you're all so miserable, Jake replied. To everyone's surprise, Carveth laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, but genuine. You are either very brave or very foolish, mechanic. Probably both. Carveth turned back to his sister. I will take your proposal to father. I cannot promise he will accept it, but I will argue that it is better than the alternative. He paused. For what it is worth, sister, I am glad you found something here. You were always too intelligent for the court to appreciate. Perhaps that is why they feared you. They feared me, Zara said in surprise. Of course. You saw things others missed. You asked questions no one else thought to ask. You made the great engineers look foolish with your simple solutions. Father sent you away not because you were worthless, but because you made others uncomfortable with their own inadequacy. It was the kindest thing Carveth had ever said to her. He left the next day, taking his delegation back to the draconian homeworld. For 3 weeks there was silence from the Empire. Then finally an official statement was released. Emperor Vaxith announced that Princess Zara's assignment to human space was permanent. He praised her technical contributions and declared that she was an honored representative of the Draconian Empire. The improved hybrid technology was presented as evidence of his wisdom in facilitating cooperation between species. Everyone who understood politics knew it was a face-saving maneuver. But it worked. The Emperor kept his reputation. The alliance remained intact, and Zara was free. 6 months after Prince Carveth's visit, Station Valor had become a hub for interspecies technical cooperation. Zara's hybrid technology project had attracted researchers from a dozen different species. The station had expanded twice to accommodate all the new personnel. Zara herself had become one of the most respected engineers in the galaxy. She published papers, taught workshops, and consulted on projects across multiple star systems. Species that had never worked together before were collaborating because of foundations she had helped build. But her favorite times were still the quiet moments in Jake's workshop, where they worked side by side on whatever project had caught their interest that week. "I have been thinking," Zara said one evening, carefully soldering a microscopic circuit while Jake held it steady. "About what?" "Marriage. Human marriage." Jake's hands jerked slightly, and Zara had to adjust her grip to keep from ruining the circuit. "What about it?" "In draconian culture, marriages are political arrangements. But humans marry for love. They choose partners based on compatibility and affection rather than strategic advantage." "Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Would you want that? With me?" Jake set down his tools and looked at her. "Zara, are you asking me to marry you?" "I believe I am. Though I am uncertain of the proper protocol. Should you have asked me instead?" "I was going to," Jake admitted. "I've been trying to figure out the right moment. Something romantic and memorable." "This moment is romantic," Zara said. "We are in your workshop surrounded by half-finished projects and empty coffee cups. We are doing what we love with the person we love. What could be more romantic than that?" Jake laughed. "When you put it that way, nothing. So is that a yes?" "Yes, absolutely yes. But I'm buying you a ring or whatever the draconian equivalent is. I'm doing this properly." "There is no draconian equivalent. We will have to create our own traditions." "Works for me. They were married 3 months 'lay feet tall with Brilliant.